Hi, my name is Amrit. I work for a company called Freedom 55 Financial. I branched off under my own umbrella below that company. It's called Mavi Wealth Management. I also have Terry here with me today.
Hi, I'm Terry. I'm from Enriched Life, and I'm Amrit's coach, and he's one of many clients we have, and he's one of my ideal clients, so that's why I'm sitting here today with him doing this interview. So we're happy to be together doing the interview.
Yeah.
So,
So maybe I'll go into a little bit more detail about who I am and why I decided to choose the role in life that I'm doing with financial planning. Um, in school, planning always interested me, and I was always involved in my parents' business as a young kid. And it just almost seemed like a good fit. I took finance and economics in school, and towards the end of my degree, it was fantastic. It just so much interest sparked me. However, I almost stumbled upon this career. How many people actually come out of school and say, oh, they want to be financial planning? They always want to go into, securities or something of that nature, something more lucrative sounding. But I essentially just stumbled upon this career. I wanted to try it out, and here I am now, a number of years later, and absolutely loving it.
right on. So what really sparked you, Amrit, to get into the career?
You know what? It was something different. It wasn't at a bank per se. Everyone said, go work at the bank.
Mm-hmm.
It's safe.
Yeah.
It's always going to be consistent. It's always going to be there. Or start at the bank, then maybe think about something later. And I remember talking to a few of my friends, and they said, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like it after 6 months, just quit and go do something else.
Yeah.
And I can't picture myself or envision myself doing anything else now after I've started doing this. It's just too much fun. Working with people, sitting down, talking to them about their goals, what their visions are, and making sure that they're planning in the most tax efficient manner for life, or if something happens in their life, that they're prepared.
Yeah.
So
That's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
That's good, because you're changing lives, really, what you're doing, right? You're helping them to feel better about themselves and their goals and their finances for the future, right? So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a very important job, you could say, you
It
have for
is.
people, right? So good for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Right on. Good. So yeah, I met Amrit in the hallway one day. I came to see my other client at Freedom 55 here one day, and we were walking down the hall, and my nephew works there, and he introduced me to Amrit. He said, "Hey, here's the new guy on the block, Amrit." And I said, "Oh, hi, how are you doing, Amrit?" And we met, and we talked for maybe 30 seconds, and I said something to him. I said, "How you doing, Amrit?" He said, "Oh, I'm really busy." I said, "Oh," and I got so much to do. And I said, "Well, think of this." I said, "Think of all the stuff you've got done, how much you've got done, and it's a real positive. And the stuff you got to do will come, and you'll get it done, right?" So I went and had my meeting with Adam, and met Amrit in the hallway again just by randomly. And he comes up and he says, "You really changed my outlook on life, of just how to look at things of business, how busy I am and how much I got done." So I said, "Cool." And then we got talking a little bit more, and I said, "Well, are you interested in some coaching?" And he said, "Sure." So we set up a meeting, and I came back a week or two later, and we sat in the boardroom, and we had a meeting, and I asked him a bunch of questions, and he joined one of my programs. And since then, we've been working together probably for 2.5, 3 years, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a great journey.
Yeah. And so, Amrit, tell me what you've accomplished, I guess, from say the first part when we did meet in the boardroom to where you are today, kind of thing, how you're feeling about the coaching part.
Yeah, when I first started, I was always feeling overwhelmed. I was always feeling that I had so much on my plate, so much going on. And I wasn't focusing on what I've accomplished and how to almost set up a specific schedule. For example, only making calls on Tuesdays from 9 to 11.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming less available from certain times of the day, certain times of the week. It's very important that people have structure and a proper schedule in mind, so that their brain is able to just kind of take themselves away in that 2 hours. That, hey, this specific time is targeted for this and this only. I'm not available for meetings. I'm not available for anything. Every week, this time I'm slotted off, and it's just giving me more structure in life, but also in my business. So I just feel way more relaxed when I come to work. And I think my clients have been able to tell the difference more
Good.
than anything else. They feel that my approach is very laid back. I accomplish a lot in it in a short time period. Lots of communication, so they're able to understand, what I would like for them to do.
Right.
However, the bigger portion is always, the back end of my personal life, being able to set targets and, having certain days for certain things. For example, I never work Sundays anymore.
Right.
And it's amazing. I used to work 7 days a week.
Yeah, and you get more work done now than you probably did before, and you're making more money.
Exactly. More efficient, being more productive, higher income. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's what happens to a lot of our clients. They work less and make more. And it happens every time, right? And you just have to trust in the journey. And when we do coach, we have 4 life zones. So the first life zone is health. So we dial into the health part, and it's mental health, physical health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So we really dial into that, because if you're not healthy, you can't really do the other things in life either, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the next zone is the relationship zone. So the relationships with ourselves we have, and with others, and the relationships with things and our telephones and everything else, right? And then we get into the business part and the money part. So we, like Amrit said, he dials in, focuses on the 2-hour sessions to do what he gets done and stuff. So, and that leads us to the last session, or the last time zone is the time. So we all have 24 hours in a day. So what do we do with our 24 hours in a day? And I ask everybody that question, so I get them to fill out a form, what they're currently doing with their 24 hours in the day, and then we say, how can we get that better? And let's get it to the ideal day. So Amrit, tell me what an ideal day looks like to you on your 24 hours now.
So for me, it can vary. Typically, if I have a later day, maybe I'll go to the gym and get everything done and out of the way. For example, today, I might have a later day, so I went early, got it done, got into the office at 9, a little bit later than usual. However, I'll probably be here later. So what I try to do is, typically, a typical day I get in at 8, I walk in, I make my to-do list for the day, write everything down, and as I finish things off, I strike it off, and there's just some sort of feeling of accomplishment when you strike it off, and especially at the end of the day when you've accomplished everything. So usually I try to have only my appointments on certain days, for example, or calls only on certain days. But ideally, I have 3-4 appointments a day. Nothing out of the ordinary, as long as you're writing things down.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're accomplishing them. I think it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So.
And then what we also do is it's called a positive focus, right? So you do that weekly, you can do it daily. So what a positive focus is, and that's so important for everyone, especially you, because when we first met, you said, I forgot what I did, right? So the positive focus kind of stops you in your tracks and gets you to check in to say, what did I do last week, right? So you go through your list, all the things you got checked off, you said, holy, I got a lot of stuff done, right?
Yeah.
And it feels good to do that. And once you get that accomplishment done, it gets to be a habit, right? And every week you can do that. So it really gets your self-esteem and your confidence built up, and you have that confidence going into the next week, and you feel more better with the clients. Like you said, your clients are noticing you are more relaxed and things. So huge, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that's good. So out of all our forms we use, Amrit, we probably have 25 forms we fill out, right, during our coaching sessions sometimes. And what's one of your favorite ones, do you think?
I would say it is probably that positive focus. That's usually how we begin our meetings. You ask me to fill it out, and it's just nice to sit down and say, okay, so what did I accomplish over the past, month or week?
Yeah.
That's got to be my favorite form, I would say. There's always a focus wheel as well. But however, that positive focus is by far the best, because you actually sit down and you write everything down, and you know what you accomplished.
Yeah.
We always focus on the negatives. Oh, I still have this to do. I still have to do this.
Yeah.
I still have this to do. Holy crap! I feel so far behind in life because I've always feeling like I have to do this next thing, and it stresses you out. Just sit back and relax. Focus on what you've accomplished.
Yeah. Good.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Right. Focus on that.
Right on. And I really think we're never going to be caught up in life anymore.
No, there's always a to-do list.
There's always a to-do list, and we're never going to be caught up until the day we croak.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's always something to do, right?
It's all about mindset.
Yeah, it is positive.
Comes down to.
Yeah, and that's why it's called a positive focus, right? So not a negative.
Yeah.
So right on. So we talked a little about your clients a little bit. So you talk to lots of clients. What is their biggest struggles you find with some of your clients in the money game?
It depends if they're a business owner or if they're just, a family. Your
Right.
business owner, they're, like I said, they're always busy. They always have lots on the go.
Yeah.
They're usually the hardest guys to meet with. It sounds like they need structure in their lives. They need more of a schedule implemented into their program. But in terms of money, it's always diversification because they always have all of their money in the business.
Right.
It's fantastic when the business is doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've noticed now that the economy has slowed down significantly, there's more businesses doing the same thing in Saskatchewan. Or if a farmer has a bad year, everything gets washed out like 2011. They struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's nice to have some diversification elsewhere, just so that they know they have a backup plan. If all else fails, I still have a backup plan in place. Really, I would say that's the biggest thing is always diversification, right?
Yeah.
Being diversified.
That's good. They're very important. I think also in businesses, businesses are getting valued less and less. People are always kind of banked on selling their business at the end for their retirement. And it's getting to me that I've seen out there, like the businesses are getting less value all the time, like the goodwill of businesses and things. Depends on the business. It could be really high, it can be really low, but some businesses are becoming worthless, at the end of the day, right? And you got to be very careful with that because that's a big money they thought they were going to have, and now they're not going to have it. So that diversification, the money products that you do, is so important, right?
It is.
Because that's all they have left.
Exactly, right? They go to retire and all they have left is business.
Yeah.
Or they have, $10 million worth of land or $1 million worth of land, or even if it's just a couple quarters of land.
Yeah.
They're banking on selling that land, and they always say they have a buyer. Well, it doesn't always work out the best way, and I've seen it firsthand. People aren't able to get loans, or they have lots of cash, they're ready to buy the land, something happens, and then the farmer or whoever owns the land will be left with far less to work with. He'll have to sell the land for less than he wants because he was banking on this land for retirement. Or they'll say they'll rent it out, and you just don't have a guarantee. So
no, that's right. There isn't nothing guaranteed in life, right? So
no, except death and taxes.
That's right. We're all gonna croak someday. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
So with talking about clients, what do you think makes clients feel good when they deal with you?
It's just the approach. It's a very lengthy approach. It takes a long time, unfortunately, sometimes. However, it can be quick if they need to. I think it's just the communication up front and just letting them know, here's my levels of service. This is your most basic. Here's more of a comprehensive plan that we can go through. Then there's even, a further plan, which would involve yourself. So just communicating to them, here are your options, what best fits your situation.
Right.
And then we can go from there. Right? If they just need some simple life insurance, they're in and out.
Yeah.
Awesome. If they want more detail, get into more detail. If it's a large business owner who needs more of a plan, we have specialists. We have lawyers, accountants, everything at our disposal so that we can, best fit their needs to what they need in life.
And that's huge because that gives you so much value. So the client's not dealing just with one planner like yourself. You've got a team of specialists, and that gives you so much credibility too, because you are going to run into things that you've maybe not run into before that you need some help, right? So it's good to have that team behind you and a good solid company too, right? That supports you in the good products.
Oh, for sure. Even in Saskatchewan here, we have several individuals who can help in terms of tax and estate planning. High net worth individuals who can always get tailored plans to their needs. from private wealth counselors. So we have a huge team behind us. It's not just myself
Yeah.
and you sitting here who could
Yeah. Help them
help
out.
them. Yeah.
Right on. That's good. Good to know. So summing it up, Amber, how do you? What would one thing you'd want to leave with the audience about business?
Business, again, we talked a lot about diversification and not counting. I don't want to say counting your chickens before they hatch, but
Right.
that's essentially what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're counting on their business that one day when they retire they'll sell it and
Yeah.
that'll be their retirement.
Yeah.
It works out sometimes and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So plan for the worst so that you have a backup plan. And that way you'll be taken care of.
Yeah. Right on.
Right? Anything else for business owners is always just protect your business and your key employees, your key people.
Yeah.
Make sure so that if anything ever happens, death, disability, illness,
Mm-hmm.
nobody likes talking about it, but if
Yeah.
it does happen, make sure you're prepared for it.
Yeah.
Not just from our end, but also, wills and buy-sell agreements.
Right.
USAs are called Unanimous Shareholders Agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure you have everything in place. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant, make
Yeah.
sure everything's planned for in the worst case. So if you
Yeah.
get the best case,
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's really dialing into their whole business and finding out what they want, what are their goals, right? And care about
Yeah.
what they want. And once you do that and understand their business, then you can take it to the next level and make sure everything gets done, right?
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
Good. Right on. So anything else you want to say? I don't know.
Well, we didn't really talk too much about your average, family who's
Mhm.
working, 9 to 5, who has
Right.
maybe a couple kids at home. They're a little bit different in terms of planning.
Mhm.
You want to make sure that everyone else is always taken care of in the household if X happens. So just make sure you plan for the worst as well if you're a family.
Yeah.
I know people always say they have pension plans at work. Well, those aren't always guaranteed, right? You never know
No.
what can happen out there.
Yeah.
Share ownership plans in companies too. We've seen it happen numerous times where things have gone south
Yeah.
with Nortel.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Bombardier, what's been happening over the past couple of years. There's just always that chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just make sure you talk to
Yeah.
somebody and get proper advice.
Yeah, because you got to be very careful, because if you're working and you're getting all your income from that company and then you have your pension with that company, and that's both of those can be taken away in a flash.
Yeah, look
know?
at oil as a prime example.
Yeah.
Right? If you work for Suncor, Enbridge, all these companies,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's had their shares, their pensions with these companies.
Yeah.
If you're living in Alberta, you lived in this big fancy house, for example, in Calgary. What if your value of your house dropped 30%?
Yeah.
Because there's no more work in the province.
Yeah.
So everyone's leaving. And then on
Mhm.
top of that, your shares of your company drop.
Yeah.
What happens if that company goes bankrupt? So you lose all your shares. And
Yeah.
you could potentially lose,
Yeah.
half of your pension.
Yeah. I heard a statistic the other day that 58% of Albertans are 3 months behind their mortgage payments.
Yeah.
58%. That's huge, right? So it's
That's-
pretty sad. So we really got to look out for the worst, and hopefully it doesn't happen. But I mean, it does happen too often, right? So
Yeah, it does happen.
and be smart with your money. Spend less than you make.
Yeah, that's
and
honestly the
and
biggest
save.
thing.
Yeah.
That is probably the biggest piece of advice that anybody can give out there is, your income might be here.
Yeah.
Well, make sure your expenses are down here.
Yeah.
If your income goes up,
Mhm.
keep your expenses down here. Don't push them up
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
that, you actually have, that's how wealth is created.
Yeah. That's right.
You
It's,
make sure
it's
that
the
you-
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just watched a video with Gary Vee, they call him, and Tony Robbins yesterday, and they were talking about the money products and wealth and stuff. And some of these guys that made Johnny Depp, they used for an example, went bankrupt. He's a
Yeah.
big movie guy, right?
Yeah.
And he was spending $30,000 a month on wine, like things like that,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, things that aren't really necessary. So I mean,
Right.
just be smart with your money. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
how much you make, just be careful with what you spend.
It
And
matters how much you save.
yes,
It really doesn't matter how much you make.
yeah,
And I've seen that over and over again too, is where I'll sit down with a guy who's making 200-300K a year,
mhm,
but he's spending it all.
Yeah.
And I'll have your average family making half of that.
mhm,
and they will live very frugally. You know, maybe
Yeah.
only take one vacation a year, live in your average home, average
Yeah.
car,
Hmm.
and they'll be saving more than that guy who's making all that money.
Yeah, I know it's pretty
Yeah.
crazy how people live, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
and it's easy to spend money and waste money because there's so many choices out there today, right? And
There is.
the TV and advertisements are all coming at us all the time with cars or clothes or whatever it is. So just be careful, you know.
Oh, I've seen
Yeah.
it time and time again where, you know, a guy will be driving a nice fancy car,
Mm-hmm.
you know, dressed to the nines,
Yeah.
and he will be broke.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mhm.
Whereas I have the guy who's dressed up in, you know, average clothes,
Yeah.
driving a rundown car, he'll be
Mhm.
worth millions.
That's right. Yeah.
We're talking, you know, just multi-millions.
Mhm.
It's just,
Yeah.
I see it over and over again.
Yeah.
So don't be fooled by this image that society has created for us that we have to dress
Yeah.
a certain way, look a certain way, just to impress people that don't matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's so huge because that's ego, and that ego gets broken down eventually, and they will be broke.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
really, they
right.
will be. So, right on. Anything else you want to touch on, Amrit?
Well, I talked a little bit about myself. Maybe you should go into detail a little bit about your background.
Yeah, my background, I've been around for almost 57 years, and I've been in the financial planning business for 25 years, and I got out of that in 2004, and moved from a small town into a city called Moose Jaw, not too far down the road here, and did that a few years ago, and started coaching again. I always was involved in coaching with our previous company, with my brother and myself, and I got coached, or was the coach, and I've been doing the coaching stuff for almost 30 years now,
Yeah.
and really like doing it. And I got off track a little bit once we sold our financial planning business 10 years ago or so, and I just got back into it about 5 years ago, and then my son-in-law Neil Freilich joined me a few years ago,
Right.
and we got it ramped up to the next level, right? So
Yeah.
we're attracting more clients all the time, and we like clients like Amrit because they're ideal. He listens, and he acts on what we talk about, and that's so important as a coach, to have a client that's coachable, you know,
Right.
and that even with your clients, right? If they
Yeah.
listen to your advice, it's so much more fun, right?
It is.
And it's a
Yeah.
win-win, you know,
It is.
and that's what this is all about too, is being a coach, is, you know, making sure that you're getting your value and you're feeling better and you're relaxed and working less and making more, and that makes us feel good too, right?
Yeah.
And we love working with you, and it's just a fun ride, right? And coaching is, everybody needs a coach, like even the athletes and whatnot too. I mean, everybody has a coach, right?
You do?
And
You all
I
have coaches?
yeah, and I have a coach, and you need them, right, to keep going ahead and be accountable. That's another big thing,
Yeah.
because it's easy to not be accountable. If we just tell ourselves something and we don't tell anybody else what our goals are, and if we don't achieve them, well, nobody's going to know we failed, or, you know.
Exactly.
So we got to get those goals out on the table. We got to get them written down on paper, and we got to communicate them to each other. And the more you communicate your goals to others, the more you will achieve them too.
Exactly.
You know, and it keeps you also accountable, and it gives you that drive to get up in the morning and get to work and get it done.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, so the coaching part, the enriched life, and why did we call it the enriched life, is because we want all our clients to have an enriched life. An enriched life means to me is being healthy physically and mentally, having great relationships in your life with your family and friends and coworkers and society, having enough money to do what you want when you want, and spend your 24 hours of the day how you want to spend them. You know,
Exactly.
not being pulled in a whole bunch of different directions, but being dialed in and focused on what you want out of the day. And sure, there's going to be distractions and things that don't go well sometimes, but the majority of your time you want to be spent where you want to be spending it.
Oh,
You know,
for sure.
yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the bottom line with the coaching part, is just work on those 4 life zones.
Right.
You know, the health, the relationships, the money, and the time. And if you can balance those 4 things, you got a good enriched life.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Maybe we'll ask a little bit more about your situation, because it almost relates back to a lot of my clients. You actually retired, I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
right? Back when you guys sold off your company.
Yeah.
2004? Was
Yeah.
it 2007?
2004. Yeah.
You guys sold off your company and then you retired.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, you got bored of retirement?
Yeah. Well, I was 44 years old then.
Yeah.
So we sold our company. Like I said, we were in a small town, Radville, and I moved to Moose Jaw, which was, Radville was 800 people, and Moose Jaw was 35,000. So it was a big move for me, and I was there for 44 years.
Yeah.
And when I left there, I was the mayor, and we had all these businesses and all these offices and companies and stuff.
Yeah.
So we basically sold and moved out of there, and it was the biggest thing I've ever had to do in my life because I was there all my life, right?
Yeah.
It was a big move, and a lot of clients that I had was relying on us. But what I did is I got a partner in, and we merged for a few years, and the plan was he was going to take over, and that's what he did. I just kind of it came faster than we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to be a 5-year plan. It worked to be about a 2-year plan.
Wow.
So he prepared to take over. So he did well. And so when I retired when I was 44, moved to Moose Jaw, and we got into the retail business with my children. And we bought some stores there, and they're still running it today. And I was too young and had too much knowledge and too much energy in me to just sit back and relax. Like, retirement to me is overrated. It's okay if you put your 30 years in and you want to golf every day for the rest of your life. Go ahead, but to me that's boring. And I like to have an enriched life, so I like to help people, and I like to see people achieve their goals and be successful. And the more I can help, the better I feel too. So it's a win-win. So the better you do, it makes me feel good, the better I feel, and it's all about feeling good, right?
It is.
And helping others, you know, and getting to the next level, and not just staying in your little comfort zone in your box all the time and saying, okay, I'm here now and I can retire or whatever. It's overrated to me.
It is. So I just wanted to make sure I touched on that because I have a lot of business owners and clients, and ever since I heard your story, what makes sense to me is that they'll probably never retire.
Yeah.
Because they'll always be doing something. Because their mind just works a different way.
Yeah.
They can never almost sit still. They always need to be doing something. But even yourself, you said your company was based out of Radville, but wasn't it all over Canada?
It was Western Canada, and we had, my brother ran that part of it. I ran the local financial planning part. We did 1,600 tax returns, and we did financial planning for all the farmers in the area mostly, right? And my brother Tim ran the mutual fund and life insurance brokerage part, right?
Yeah.
So we built that up over the 20-year span, and it sold out in 2004, and Manulife ended up with it eventually.
I heard Manulife ended up buying
it's just like the big dogs get bigger, right? And they just keep buying. And in the business at that time, you either had to be a real niche market, or you got to get into the big leagues. And if you get in the middle, it's called Death Valley. So you got to make a choice. You got to be really specialized in something, or you got to join the big leagues, right?
Oh, I see.
And you could say we got gobbled up, but no, it's just how the times are, right? And it happens with farms, it happens with businesses, it happens with everything, right?
It does.
So some people are in that decision-making mode. You got to make a decision.
I agree.
And sometimes you got to make it with your head, not your heart, because it's really hard to make business decisions with your heart, because it's usually the wrong one. Because we had 100 and some employees down there that we had to say that things are going to change in the future, and we're going to be moving on with a different company, and it's not going to be the same. And so people ended up losing their jobs and different things too, right? So it's a pretty tough, big decisions.
For sure it is.
And we all got through it, and whatever it is, right? And you keep moving on, and that's all life is. It changes, and you get side blinded sometimes, and you just gotta make the choice to do what's best for yourself and keep moving.
Exactly. I agree.
So, right on.
Last thing I really just wanted to touch on was it's all about surrounding yourself with the right team.
Mm-hmm.
So just having the right accountant, the right lawyer, real estate agent, coach, financial advisor, whatever it might be, just surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
And, just let them do their job.
Right.
Yeah. And you focus on what you're good at.
Right.
Whether it's, if you own a trucking company, or you own whatever the case might be, you own a dental clinic, you own a pharmacy, whatever it might be that you do.
Yeah.
Just be good at what you do and surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
People
So
that
important.
You trust.
Yeah. It's about focusing on your strengths, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't figure that out till I was about 21 years old, about focusing on your strength. Because
Yeah.
in school, they basically teach you how to, improve your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of them, and I still do, right?
Yeah.
But once I figured out, I focused on my strengths, and I got into business with my brother, and then we can hire somebody to do that for us. I
Right.
don't have to do that. And
Yeah.
once I started to focus on my strength, my income went right up,
Right.
right? And you're so important, and then surround yourself with the right people, and things just get better and better and better.
Yeah, it's all about delegating, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
can't do it all.
that's right. And you can't, the guys that try to be the jack of all trades, they say, they have a hard time,
More
focusing.
stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're limited because there's only so many times or so much hours in the day, right? So they're limited to what they can do. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you got a good point there. Good. Yeah, focus on your strengths and
Not your weaknesses. So you hide your weaknesses.
in a way, yeah,
Right,
you do. Yeah,
You're so good at your strength that you hide your weaknesses.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that helps. So
It's like the guy who shoots a lot of threes. You don't see him going down and dunking the ball.
that's right. He's always shooting. Practice.
Yeah, that's right.
Good. Right on. So to sum it up, yeah, that was good, Amrit. Thank you very much, and we look forward to doing business with you for many years to come.
Awesome. You as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.